Greetings, comrades, and hello, everyone. I'm Quinn866. And welcome back to the animemories retrospective. Last time in the Inuyasha reviews, we covered the Blade Brothers arc. Oh dang, really has been that long, huh? Anyways, it saw to the task of introducing a plethora of new characters to either assist or hinder our main cast, such as Koga or Kagura, to name a few. That being said, I criticized in that video the plot focus was much more on the primary trio of Sesshomaru, Inuyasha, and Naraku. All three characters I love in my own right, and while I'm not exactly expecting the series to focus on all the characters equally, since that is a bit of a tough task, I will admit some of the other characters definitely drew the short stick. As well as it for being, well, a follow-up to Season 1, I really was expecting it to improve upon a lot of things. Namely Kikyo, but then again, what were you really expecting from my least favorite character? However, for a low point, it really wasn't that bad. The arc did excel in demonstrating how malicious our primary antagonist Naraku could be. It also did a good job at humanizing Sesshomaru, and most certainly did it do a fantastic job at showing Inuyasha's weakness. And I really would like to re-emphasize that. Just because Season 2 of Inuyasha is, in my opinion, the low point, doesn't mean I think it's bad. I gave it above average score, and if anything, I think that should be a testament to how much I really enjoy Inuyasha, if the low point is still enjoyable. And for as infuriating as some of the episodes or decisions could be, I still think the Blade Brothers arc turned out fairly solid, which is not something I can often say for least favorite parts of series. But this is not a recap of the Season 2 video. We're talking about Season 3 now, or more accurately the first portion of Season 3, because in my other videos, I showed that Inuyasha didn't exactly really have an arc structure, at least nothing official, so I kind of just had to wing it and make my own arcs. This is the Tsubaki arc, the topic of today's video. Before I get into the arc itself, I just want to say this very personal thing really quickly. As a kid, Season 3 was always my favorite, right alongside the final act. I mean, the final act is amazing. I cannot wait to cover that in my videos. Despite me feeling the way I feel about Season 3, as a kid, I, oddly enough, did not remember a lot of this early portion in the Tsubaki arc. I didn't even remember Tsubaki as a character, and I thought I remembered a lot about Inuyasha. Like, I could remember some of the basic monsters of the week or smaller characters, but this one just eluded me. So I was kind of curious to see, going into this, if it held up. I mean, my memory can sometimes betray me, but look at how Sailor Moon Season 2 turned out. I said as a kid that Sailor Moon Season 2 was one of my lower placed arcs, but it ended up being in the middle of the pack after I realized Makaitri and Black Moon Clan had a lot to appreciate in there. And it's also, hopefully, we shall know at the end of this video, if the argument is, well, if I didn't remember it, it must have not made a very good or memorable impression on me. You know, there can be forgettable things that actually turn out good when you come back to them. So, let's see. Starting with the world. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. I feel like I don't need to make a title card in a whole world section because, unlike Season 1 and 2, Season 3 of Inuyasha really, like, it's weird. By this point, Inuyasha has kind of started to drift a bit away from the each season encapsulates a general locale. I mean, Season 3 does have, you know, a majority of it taking place in villages. I dubbed it Village this season in my world analysis and other videos. Although it's a bit of a stretchy overgeneralization, but bear with me. And I don't really think I need to cover villages since we've seen plenty of them by now. And while they're not exactly like Japanese towns or a school or whatever, I don't really feel the need to dive into it. So, to keep this video within a reasonable time frame, let's just get right into the characters.
Exorcism sutras, they're useless on me!
Well, funnily enough, despite my ramblings in the previous section, this one's not exactly going to be too long either. This video might turn out to be one of my shorter animemories retrospective reviews because the Tsubaki arc is fairly short. I'll keep a tradition. I'll say any big noteworthy changes between pre-existing characters before going through the newly established ones, but coming off of Season 2, there's not a lot to be said. I mean, at least not yet. I mean, Inuyasha himself is becoming a bit more level-headed and reasonable since he's seeing that he can trust others coming off of Season 2. I guess getting beaten so many times really did a good job at making Inuyasha kind of crawl out of his comfort zone. He still butts head with others, but he's at least shown to be compassionate, and even in some cases, more sensitive to his other party members. Kagome is becoming a bit more confident, seeing as she's more willing to get involved in fights using sacred arrows. Although her whole gimmick with feeling inferior to Kikyo still sucks. I've already talked to death about why this love triangle is not doing it for me. And by now, guys, by now, the entire sit boy gag is not even for her protection. It's just a way for her to ventilate Inuyasha. He's not gonna kill her now, so it kind of makes that gimmick a little... It makes it kind of mean-spirited, if I'm being honest. But, you know, I don't watch Inuyasha for the romance anyways. Moroku has been getting closer to Sango, though he still makes his mistakes, mainly squeezing her butt, and he's still trying to pick up other women, but when helping out, he helps out. He's got the perks of being a monk, all the spiritual stuff and all that. He also can get more serious too, seeing how bad things could have gotten. I guess Season 2 kind of pushed him out of his comfort zone as well. Sango has probably seen the least amount of changes, aside from Kohaku. She's still determined to bring down Naraku, but ultimately, she's remaining kind of the same. Kilala is a fire cat, and Shippo... Actually, Shippo is becoming a bit braver, with him being arguably the weakest link of the cast, and wanting to contribute in some ways. I do like seeing how, in this season, we'll have a Shippo episode or two, and while they're usually nothing mind-blowing, they're nice little excuses for a break. As for sides, a handful of them actually don't even show up here. I mean, with the Tsubaki arc only taking place between episodes 55 and 64, with it not being that long, it makes sense not all of them would make big appearances, but I'll just give you a general idea of their whereabouts and what they're doing in the story. Koga is still out searching for Kagura to get revenge for his slaughtered Wolf Demon Tribe brethrens. Sashomaru is still on his search for Naraku to defeat Naraku with his new sword Tokujin. Jokin is loyally following his master alongside their mascot Aun, who is literally two-headed thunder dragon. I don't know if I mentioned Aun or not. He's basically the Kilala of Shippo's party, or maybe Aon's female. I don't know. It's the Thunder Dragon never talks. I don't really use Aon that much, but figured I'd at least say it. And Rin is actually letting on a little bit more about Tsushomaru. Rin really is the big key player in humanizing him, and although it doesn't really show too much here, just food for thought. On the villain side of things, we actually won't see too many of them either. Naraku strikes to deal with Tsubaki, the main threat of this arc. Kagura is reluctantly serving Naraku since he literally holds her heart in his hand, and Kana is off-screen doing God knows what the mysterious mule child is doing. As for Kikyo, well, actually, I'll admit, Kikyo does let on a bit more in this arc. Yes, shocking, I know. Don't get your hopes up, though. It's not much, but at least we're treading into some new territory with this character. In fact, I'll just say it, by now, we're past the worst part of Kikyo's writing. It doesn't exactly justify her, but I can safely say that early series Kikyo, once you're over it, you're over it. A character can be intentionally frustrating. Like, I know that, like, this is an intentional archetype. I mean, take a handful of characters in something like Fairy Tail. Loxus, when he was first introduced in the Battle of Fairy Tail arc in Season 1, they made him a big hateable villain. They made him a massive douchebag. But afterwards, they did a solid job of humanizing him, and he really came through by the end of the series. I see they're going for that with Kikyo, although the whole like phase of like the douchebaggy phase at the start, it's needlessly extended beyond what it needs to be. And the episodes where Kikyo just was focused on early episode, they beat a dead horse. They were just re-emphasizing the love triangle, my least favorite part of Inuyasha's writing. So, yeah, at the very least, I'll have more things to say about Kikyo positively coming forward. But as of this arc, it's mostly just going to be detailing her as a priestess. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock, she is a priestess, but we'll learn a bit of history about her through Kaede and a few other characters, as well as Tsubaki actually being a, well, former associate of Kikyo's. Anyways, new characters. We only have a few. Again, shorter episode length, so of course there's going to be less characters. Satsuki is a little girl who meets up with the party at a village early on. Mainly acts as a one-episode buddy for Shippo to bond with, when it works. Tokajin, no, not Sesshomaru's sword, I know it sounds samey, is an obese and creepy sage guy who is really weird. Definitely one of the more disturbing monsters of the week. The only reason why I bring him up is because he actually has a jewel shard. It's been a while since we collected those, so at least he has that going for him. Serena and Susanna are two sisters Sango will interact with, also showing off some of the lighter methods Sango uses to repel demons. Momiji and Botan are two young priestesses who will come into play with the villain's plan in this arc. They use Shikigami, which are essentially the divine user's counter to demons or summons. Basically feudal Pokemon, if you will. And last but not least, I've been stalling for this for a while, the most noteworthy character of this arc, the titular Tsubaki herself, the Dark Priestess, and Kikyo's rival of sorts. She trained alongside Kikyo at a young age, but seeing Kikyo get tasked with big duties like guarding the sacred jewel and getting all the fame caused Tsubaki to become envious of Kikyo's beauty or something. She tried to one-up her rival in divine practices by managing to use demons against other demons, but she was banished from her spiritual duties for taking on the task of using demons against demons, and she was labeled a heretic. Angered and even more jealous than before, Tsubaki intends to crush Kikyo and seek eternal youth. Well, not exactly the most complex backstory, but it gets the job done. And the cast's talk is done. Really, apart from Tsubaki, there really isn't too much to say here, and I could have easily trimmed out this segment, but I feel like I gotta honor tradition, and given the fact that it has been a while since I've uploaded animemories retrospective videos, I actually got a new job. You may notice I have been uploading God of War videos. Animemories retrospective reviews are going to be coming out a little bit slower, but I'll do my best to keep the content coming, slow or otherwise. But now let's go into the section I'm sure everyone's been waiting for, the story.
This time, victory is mine! Oh no!
Kicking off our traditional descriptions is the first episode of this arc. It actually focuses on Shippo, which is refreshing. We haven't had a Shippo-centered episode, or that many scenes, so this gives the mascot some time, and that's much appreciated. Episode 55, The Stoneflower and Shippo's First Love, might sound like a cringy, romantic cliche plot or something, but it actually isn't. At a village, a young girl named Satsuki, who lost her father, catches the attention of Shippo. Empathizing with her, seeing as Shippo lost his father as well, the two get along quickly. It isn't until a lizard demon targets Satsuki that Shippo actually tries to save her, with Inuyasha and the rest a bit of a distance away. Shippo does his best while he does damage to weaken the lizard, but he ultimately gets caught off guard and Inuyasha cuts the thing down, saving him. Shippo laments that he's weak and not improving like the others, but Inuyasha actually confronts Shippo and tells him that he's contributing in his own unique way. It's actually kind of nice to see Inuyasha think sincerely about Shippo, especially after the amount of head bonks the little guys received. So the Tsubaki arc has started off with a decent little filler episode. Episode 56, Temptress in the Mist, follows a similar logic, giving screen time to a character who hasn't received as much. Moroku, while definitely having more screen time and attention than Shippo, hasn't gotten a lot to go off of. I will say though, this episode is not exactly contributing to his character in any major way, but it is still nice to spend time with him all the same. There's a beautiful female demon who's taking the appearance of a young princess and is stealing the life force of men lost in a land of mist. Moroku chooses to go there and perform his monthly duties. Song and the others thinks he's being dumb, actually getting appeal to the idea of a beautiful woman. That's a demon, but he actually is there for a good reason. The princess was actually a lingering soul and possessed by a weasel demon, and the cycle would keep going if it wasn't stopped. Furthermore, the spirit of the princess would be trapped helplessly bound to the weasel demon, to which Sango and Moroku team up to defeat it, exorcise the spirit, save all the men that were captured, and that's about it. Again, another filler episode, simple, and for Moroku, I think it gets the job done. Once again, this is proof that filler can in fact be good. As for episode 57, Fateful Night in Togenkyo Part 1, oh gee, I wonder if this is a multi-parter. Well golly, if what came before is a good example of filler, then let this serve as a mediocre example of story significant stuff. And I'd like to remind you, I'm saying this about a non-Kikyo centered episode. This big, fat, stupid sage, Tokajin, is really creepy and unsettling, and I'm not gonna lie, he's probably one of the more icky villains. The whole thing about him shrinking victims and feeding them to this demon tree is also really gross. And if you're wondering why I say this episode is story significant, since it certainly seems like filler, it does net the party 3 jewel shards, so that is enough to contribute to the plot, seeing as the Shikon jewel is made a big deal of constantly. However, by this point, they're really collecting less and less shards, so any episode that has a shard might as well be considered story significant. But yeah, it's a two-parter, not really a lot goes on, the villain is really creepy. I don't have a lot to say about this. Episode 58, Fateful Night in Togenkyo Part 2, isn't much better. I mean, they beat the disgusting big fatty who got absorbed by his own tree and all. Good riddance to the guy. I just do not like the way this guy looks. Nor is his plan really that interesting. Like, seriously, why does he wear the shard like a belly button piercing? That's just gross. It's weird. But I mean, at least they got a sacred jewel shard, so that's nice, I guess. And, okay, to give credit here, we do see some of Tetsaiga's more passive abilities, like calling the sword back to the sheath, or using the sheath to deflect projectile attacks. I mean, it's not really a terrible episode, just really boring, and really nothing I actually care to rewatch. I mean, take it as you will, but between this and a Kikyo episode, I couldn't really tell ya. Episode 59, The Beautiful Sister Apprentices, actually takes the time to show a bit of Sango and Kilala on their own. We know that Sango's weapon, Hiraikotsu, is made from demon bones. However, it's been damaged in combat, so she needs to return home and repair it a little bit using the tools left behind. While there, 2 girls, Serena and Susanna, are caught stealing, but they tell Sango it's because they needed supplies to defeat demons who were threatening their village. Sango decides to teach them a bit before it turns out they actually were trying to steal stuff, not for demons, but because their clan needed power. Sango saves 2 sisters, and they apologetically see the error of their ways. I do like knowing a bit more about Hiraikotsu as well as Sango seeing her own village. It's a good quiet episode, although it really doesn't do that much, apart from further Sango's resolve to avenge all of her family, the village, save Kohaku, defeat Naraku. I don't really need it to do much more than that, and again, for Sango, my first anime crush, I absolutely love having more screen time with her, but, you know, it's good. Alright, enough fillers. It's time for the actual Tsubaki plotline to kick off. Episode 60, the 50-year-old Curse of the Dark Priestess, I almost read my script wrong there, is where the plot actually kicks off. Kagura finds an elderly Tsubaki, and thanks to some incentive from Naraku, the two strike a bargain to take down Kikyo. Using the defiled, nearly whole sacred jewel Naraku lended her, as well as her Shikigami magic, Tsubaki manipulates Kagome into firing at Inuyasha, thus replicating the events that sealed him to the tree from Kikyo all those years ago. Kikyo meanwhile senses Tsubaki's presence and decides to get personally involved. Episode 61, Kikyo and the Dark Priestess, shows a bit of history between the two. As I stated earlier in the video, the two of them had trained side by side, with Kikyo getting all the praise and attention, with Tsubaki being forgotten and inferior. After she was banished from her post and labeled one of the Dark Ones, she tried to curse Kikyo using her snake Shikigami, but her attack was reflected back at her, with Kikyo just leaving Tsubaki to contemplate and feel the weight of her own curse. While Kikyo threatens Tsubaki for working with Naraku, even saying not to underestimate Kagome since she is her reincarnation, Inuyasha and the gang approach the hut where the two are stationed, and Kikyo vanishes before they get inside, warning Tsubaki one final time. It's evident that Kikyo doesn't like Tsubaki, but she did retain some level of attachment knowing they were both priestesses. As the party prepare to face off with the Dark Priestess, the episode transitions to its next part. Now, episode 62, Tsubaki's Unrelenting Evil spell, gave me a bit of a scare at the start. Kagome gets cursed again and is stuck in a dream world, and shows a what-if world with her never meeting Inuyasha. This does lead into the whole "I'm not as good as Kikyo" jealousy speech you'd expect, but interestingly enough, in her dream, she does talk to a vision of Kikyo, who does admittedly symbolize Kagome's struggle, doubt, and inner feelings. Through a bit of admittedly fascinating dialogue, Kagome snaps out of the delusion and fires a sacred arrow at the Shikigami Tsubaki was using, allowing Inuyasha to get in close, but using demons that Naraku gave Tsubaki, she uses their numbers to force Inuyasha back at a distance again before attempting to curse Kagome again, who poetically, and honestly in a cool scene, manages to pull off the same reflection move with her bow that Kikyo did, driving Tsubaki away from the battlefield all those years ago. I guess you could say this is a power-up for Kagome of sorts, and it's a cool moment, all things considered. It also proves her connection to Kikyo, and you know what? I'm gonna go forth and say it. This is actually a decent Kikyo Kagome-centered episode, so they're not all that bad. However, Tsubaki isn't done yet, seeing as, of course, she retreats, and this will lead into the next episode. Episode 63, The Red and White Priestesses, sees Tsubaki trick two young women cut from the same cloth. Momiji and Botan aren't too complex characters, but seeing as Inuyasha, Shippo, and Kilala all have demonic traits, Tsubaki makes them believe that they are indeed evil demons, and with both of them being priestesses having spiritual arts, they'll have the proper ways to fight off. So the party managed to power through the priestess's Shikigami. Of course they would. What would you expect? Both of them are total noobs for the record. Literally, their Shikigami try and mimic Inuyasha and Kagome. Decent comic relief, but still. However, this buys Tsubaki enough time to absorb the power of the demon she had tamed all those years ago. The one for the using demons to fight other demons. This giant ogre that's in a tower. So the party make it there and prepare for round 2 with Tsubaki, who is now fused with this giant ogre, making her into a really grotesque giant demon. Last but not least, episode 64, Giant Ogre of the Forbidden Tower, is mostly used for the transformed ogre Tsubaki fight, which she seems like she has the upper hand until Inuyasha notices she now has a stronger demonic aura thanks to absorbing the ogre demon. While Tsubaki did have demonic powers, it wasn't enough for Inuyasha to take advantage of, but seeing as she's powered up and Inuyasha had his most recent power-up from Season 2, he can use the Backlash Wave to hurl her demonic energy, combined with the might of Tetsaiga, thus winning the battle. It actually feels pretty triumphant seeing Tsubaki reduced back to that one wrinkled, writhing witch she is before turning to ash. While Kagura does manage to retrieve the sacred jewel before the party can, Tsubaki is defeated, Momiji and Botan vow to train harder, hopefully to meet the party again on happier and better terms. Inuyasha and the gang are happy to have saved the day to continue their quest to stop Naraku, and even Kikyo too seems a bit better off, having the grudge with her former associate put aside. And that concludes the Tsubaki arc. It's short and probably not the most memorable arc. I can definitely see why I forgot it as a kid. This arc was just a decent run of episodes all throughout. Nothing special, mind you, but that doesn't really need to be anything that special. It's a little hard to rank this one, honestly, especially since I had already confirmed the fact that the Blade Brothers arc is the low point. So naturally, I'll be giving the Tsubaki arc a higher score, which might seem a little unfair since, as I stated, it doesn't do anything extraordinarily big, doesn't do anything extraordinarily wrong either. However, I do still feel like if I were to rewatch this or season 2, I'd probably pick Tsubaki because it's something I could cram in easier, and it does take the opportunity for some laid back fillers while also adding a little bit more to characters I wanted to see more of. And the fact that it did actually intrigue me to Kikyo, I think is reason enough for me to give it a higher score, since that's what I want out of season 2. I want them to improve upon a lot of the things I didn't really see improved on. And with this arc kind of doing that, I gotta give it credit where it's due. Now, by no means am I saying this has bigger highlights than season 2, because season 2 had some amazing individual moments. However, as a collective arc, season 2 also did have some lower points, whereas this arc, it didn't have any of the highs or lows. It was just a consistently, yeah, it was decent time. And while that doesn't sound too special, for me, and given the fact that Inuyasha's track run is chock full of moments, it's just really refreshing. Alas, I will say, I can definitely see why I forgot this set of episodes as a kid, because, as I said, it doesn't do anything majorly outstanding outside of Kikyo, who I am by no means the biggest fan of. I made that no secret in my videos. Though, I think that wraps up this video quite nicely. It's definitely one of the shortest arcs of Inuyasha, probably one of my shorter videos in general, but sometimes you gotta make a short video here or there, and really, how on earth could I bloat an arc that is barely even 10 episodes? So, I shall give the Tsubaki arc a 7.1 out of 10. It's better than both the Blade Brothers and the expansion arc for being more consistent, and while I do think Down the Well arc had better highlights as well as a better story structure, I think that this arc does what it needs to, nothing more, nothing less, and really, I'm cool with that. Anyways, next time, however, we'll be covering Season 3. The Season 3 I knew and loved as a kid. The Strike Back arc. And I cannot wait to talk about it. But with my new job and a bunch of other stuff going on, that video might take a while to make. But until then, I'm Quinn866, and have a good one.